You walk into the gym to train a client and walk out as her future prince? Sounds like a fairy tale until it actually happened. This is how Sweden got its most unexpected royal, Prince Daniel. But before he wore a crown, he was humiliated across the country. The media mocked him, called him a nobody, a commoner, unworthy of royalty. To them, he was just a gym trainer dating the future queen. And that wasn't all. Reporters exposed every flaw. Royal staff tried to change how he walked, talked, even smiled. One headline said it all: turning a gym owner into a prince. It wasn't love at first sight for the public, but Daniel didn't care, because for him, Victoria was worth it. And no amount of humiliation could shake his love for Victoria. But who was Daniel Westling before royalty? And why did the media treat him like he didn't exist? Born in Örebro County in 1973, Daniel didn't come from palaces or prestige. He grew up in Ockelbo, a quiet Swedish town where his dad worked in the local municipality and his mom sorted letters at the post office. He wasn't groomed for greatness. He just lifted weights, played sports, and kept his head down. But one thing drove him: discipline. After his military service, Daniel became a personal trainer. No fame, no shortcuts, just sweat and silence. But he was smart. He co-founded Balance Training, a chain of luxury gyms in Stockholm. It catered to Sweden's elite, and one day in 2001, royalty walked in. Her name was Crown Princess Victoria. At first, it was just reps and routines, but something started building, and neither of them could ignore it. Their love story didn't start with fireworks. It started with form checks and silence in 2001. Victoria walked into Balance Training as just another client. Daniel became her trainer, professional, focused, and distant. But rep by rep, session by session, that wall started to crack. There was no big moment, no movie scene spark. Victoria later said, "It wasn't instant. It was slow, but real." Still, the world wasn't ready. A princess falling for her gym coach? That couldn't be royal, so they kept it hidden until 2002 when a single photo at a wedding made it public. The press went wild. Headlines questioned his bloodline, his manners, and his past. But behind the noise, something unshakable was growing. But love alone wasn't enough. While Victoria was being prepared to rule a nation, Daniel was still building his business empire. Two different worlds, and both were about to collide. The public couldn't accept it. To them, Daniel was still just a gym owner, not a statesman, not a royal. Headlines questioned his education, his posture, and even the way he smiled. The media didn't just report, they dissected. Every appearance became a test. Was he walking right, dressing right, speaking right? And underneath it all, one brutal message: he doesn't belong. But Victoria didn't care. Their relationship defied every expectation placed on the throne. But there was one person Daniel hadn't won over yet: the king himself. And inside the palace, doubt was growing louder than ever. He wasn't born royal, but he made her feel human. And for the first time, the palace had to ask itself, what if love mattered more than lineage? It wasn't easy for Victoria either. As the backlash grew, she faced a choice no heir should ever have to make: the throne or Daniel. From the start, her parents were unsure. King Carl XVI. Gustav and Queen Sylvia didn't see a future prince. They saw a gym owner from a tiny village called Ockelbo. No royal ties, no diplomatic training, just a simple country boy who knew nothing of palace life or protocol. Someone who, in their eyes, lacked the polish needed to represent the crown on the world stage. Behind closed doors, they questioned everything. Could he handle the pressure? Would he embarrass the crown? Would he slow Victoria down in her path to becoming queen? But Victoria stood her ground. She told them Daniel wasn't a risk. He was her anchor. She believed he could support her as both a queen and a woman navigating the spotlight alone. His strength didn't come from titles. It came from how he made her feel when no one was watching. Meanwhile, the press smelled blood. When they were first seen together at a wedding in 2002, the media attacked. Every headline was a warning shot. They tore into Daniel's past, his business, even his accent. Victoria finally spoke out in 2004. She admitted much of what was written was unfair, but hoped justice would prevail. Until then, they kept their love private, not because it was weak, but because it was real and worth protecting. Despite everything, the palace walls finally began to crack. After nearly 8 years of silence, whispers, and judgment, Victoria stood tall beside Daniel. On February 24th, 2009, they announced their engagement. For the first time, King Carl XVI Gustaf offered public praise. He called Daniel hardworking, humble, and serious about his role. It wasn't a full royal embrace, but it was enough. And for the first time, Sweden began to listen. Victoria said she felt safe with Daniel, secure, like she could finally breathe. He wasn't just her partner, he was her peace. Then came the turning point. On a freezing winter day in the gardens of Drottningholm Palace, Daniel took a breath and dropped to one knee. No palace crowd, no royal script, just him, her, and the snow. Victoria said yes before he could finish the question. He gave her a solitaire diamond on a white gold band. It wasn't tradition, it was real. Their engagement broke every royal rule. No ancient heirloom, no pomp, just a modern diamond, quietly defiant, just like their love story. 1 year later, they chose a wedding date with meaning, June 19th, 2010, her parents' anniversary. It wasn't just the start of their marriage, it was the start of rewriting what royalty could look like. Despite the backlash, their wedding wasn't just accepted, it was celebrated. On June 19th, 2010, Victoria and Daniel married at Stockholm Cathedral as an entire nation watched. It wasn't just a ceremony, it was a statement. A commoner had become a prince, and Sweden had chosen love over lineage. Victoria stood before the world and said, "I would like to thank you, the Swedish people, for having given me my prince." Their wedding was called the biggest royal event in Europe since Prince Charles and Lady Diana in 1981. It was grand, historic, emotional, a moment stitched into Swedish history forever. She wore white satin by pairing Sheden, the Swedish cameo tiara, and her mother's veil. He wore a sash he never dreamed he'd earn the Order of the Seraphim. Music filled the cathedral, custom composed for them. And when the final note of "When You Tell the World You're Mine" echoed through the air, Sweden erupted. But even here, tradition fought back. Victoria wanted her father to walk her down the aisle. Swedish church custom said no. Royal couples were to walk together. The debate sparked national controversy, dividing traditionalists and modernists alike. The compromise? Her father walked her halfway. Then she took Daniel's hand and walked the rest alone. It was symbolic. She wasn't just marrying a man, she was choosing a path. Over 1,100 guests filled the cathedral. 500,000 lined the streets. After the vows, they rode in a horse-drawn carriage through Stockholm, then sailed on the royal barge Vasaorden to the palace, beneath a sky lit with fighter jets. It wasn't just a royal wedding, it was a love story carried by a nation. For a while, everything seemed perfect. But in 2022, one rumor reignited everything they fought so hard to overcome. Just as Sweden finally embraced him, Daniel received something no gym trainer could ever imagine: a title, a sash, a place in history. Upon marriage, Daniel Westling became Prince Daniel, Duke of Västergötland. He was awarded the Order of the Seraphim, Sweden's highest royal honor. The boy from Ockelbo had officially become part of the crown. But the ceremony wasn't the finish line. It was the start of a new test. Even after the fairy tale wedding, the media wouldn't let go. In 2022, 12 years into their marriage, a storm hit. Tabloids like Stoppa Pressarna published claims of betrayal. One report described an incredible betrayal that left Victoria destroyed. Another headline hinted that Daniel had been banned from events. No names, no proof, just shadows, and they spread like wildfire. Swedish media outlets ran with it. Twitter exploded. Speculation turned into conversation. Conversation into doubt. The backlash was brutal. So much so that Victoria and Daniel did something almost unheard of in royal history. They released a joint statement. Together, they called the rumors completely baseless. They weren't defending a title, they were protecting their family. Daniel later said in an interview ahead of his 50th birthday, "These things aren't just mean. They have real consequences." He shared those friends from around the world had reached out in shock. Even now, whispers follow him. But despite everything, judgment, rejection, rumors, one thing has never changed. Victoria is still by his side. And Daniel, he's still showing up. Not for headlines, not for power, but for her. Because once upon a time, he walked into a gym and unknowingly stepped into history. And with this, we wrap up this video. We hope you enjoyed the video. If you find our channel interesting, then subscribe to it. Thank you. See you in the next video.